Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Kielseth, and to be more specific, that is filmmaker Alex Cox and myself, film curator Pablo Kielseth. Alex will join us by phone from his home in Oregon, while I sneak away from my office to call him from one of the projection booths used by the International Film Series, which has been screening foreign and independent movies at CU Boulder since 1941. We will keep our chats to about 20 minutes as we discuss whatever movie-related topics grab our fancy. Thanks for joining us.
No se va. Hello?
Alex?
Hey, Pablo.
To paraphrase the famous dentist from Marathon Man, is it safe?
It's safe if you don't mind me being really hoarse, because today I've recorded a commentary for the last movie and a video introduction to I Am Cuba, which is playing at the Ashland Independent Film Festival.
Oh, when does that take place?
In April, very soon. And I guess they're doing part virtual, part reality. And so I dressed up. I put on my suit and my tie, so I would look like that guy on PBS, on Turner.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Well, that sounds, and you had something, you discovered something else about I Am Cuba. What was, I didn't quite catch that in your voicemail message.
Man, there's tons of stuff. I went through there's an incredible press kit, which is like 50 pages long. I mean, Che Guevara was on set as a story script advisor. I mean, amazing stuff. And there's also a documentary about I Am Cuba called The Siberian Mammoth, which I'm now trying to track down.
Well, I Am Cuba is just an amazing the cinematography alone is just stunning. I'll never forget seeing it. Yeah.
And they've done a new 4K restoration. Julian Temple the English director, was trying to license clips, and the quality was so poor that he persuaded his producers to get together with Milestone, the American distributor, and they made a new 4K version. So that's quite exciting.
Good for them.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Well, Milestone's always fighting the good fight. I've done quite a bit of business with them, and I'm glad to know that they're still out there and putting out amazing restorations of fantastic old movies.
They're really responsive too. I mean, if you contact them about something in the press kit, the head of the company gets back to you and will engage in a spirited debate.
Dennis,
and it's just Dennis is amazing.
Sure.
On Sunday.
Oh yeah. No.
What a guy.
Well. Speaking of some older titles, we actually were going to talk about Lindsay Anderson today.
Yes. Did you watch his film, The Old Crowd?
I did. And I want to give people a little bit of background here first, because just in case, just to fill in a couple holes. I mean,
absolutely.
Lindsay Anderson, he was a big fan of John Ford and Humphrey Jennings, who latter being, I guess he was well known for some of his documentaries for the General Post Office Film Unit. Now, Lindsay, he was very passionate about cinema. From what I gather, and you can see it in his work, he kind of wished it was more socially and morally aware than the British cinema that he was growing up with. Okay, well, so we get to then his second feature, which is it's one word followed by three periods, ellipses. It's if ... And that was a huge commercial success.
And a game changer for British film, because British film up until that point had been pretty much rooted in naturalism. Rooted in what they called the kitchen sink drama. And this was like a filmmaker who just dragged it out of that, with black and white and color and a whole bunch of surrealist elements. Anyway, sorry, but please continue.
But then Lindsay then put Malcolm McDowell in Oh Lucky Man, which you and I screened when you were out here. That was a 1973 release. And then he also put Malcolm McDowell in Britannia Hospital, which I have not seen. That was 1982. And in between those two movies, he did some television work, which included The Old Crowd that you just turned me on to. So that's and which is a 1 hour drama written by Alan Bennett. And
it was part of six. There were 6 1-hour TV dramas made by commercial television in England in late in the 70s, and 4 of them were directed by Stephen Frears, who produced all 6.
Yep.
1 was directed by some other dude, and 1 they gave to Anderson.
And that is the Stephen Frears who we then know as a director from his work as The Grifters and many other things, right?
Oh, many, many films. He's probably one of the most well-known and successful British film directors.
Sure. And also The Old Crowd had a nice little turn by Philip Stone, who played Malcolm McDowell's father in A Clockwork Orange and Grady in The Shining.
Yes.
Now, you brought The Old Crowd to my attention, and it kind of reminded me, it sort of had it obviously had a lot of social commentary. It had sort of a dream logic that reminded me a little bit of Buñuel, but at the same time, it's pretty clear what it's doing. And you brought up some interesting points about it. So why don't you fill in listeners as to what what were the highlights for you?
I was turned on to The Old Crowd by a friend of mine with whom I'd been to Bristol University Film School in 1976-77, a guy called Martin Turner. After I'd been at Bristol, I got a Fulbright and went to the US. Martin remained in England and somehow fell in with Lindsay Anderson. And he ended up being uncredited art director on The Old Crowd and Britannia Hospital.
Oh.
And in The Old Crowd, he was responsible for the more bizarre elements. He was responsible for the love scene behind Grandma's television. He was responsible for the rubber glove in the soup.
Yep.
And he was responsible for the slideshow, which causes a tragic reaction with the character known as Totty.
Right.
So he was really in it. He was in the thick of it, and he was super proud of it. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the press screening of The Old Crowd in London. And so I sat, it was kind of bizarre because we were in this giant theater, like as big as the Albert Hall, but we were looking at it on little 14-inch monitors, like arrayed down the aisles. So it wasn't the ideal way, although it was a television show and it was shot on video and all the rest of it. And what the reporters, the film journalists thought coming in was that we're going to see quality English TV drama. And indeed, it starts like quality English TV drama comedy. Alan Bennett's a funny writer. But it's all about toffs and wealthy people and aristocrats and all of that stuff, and celebrating the old crowd, the upper echelons of English society that we've seen before in Anderson's films.
Yep.
But then, as you probably noticed, something happens about 20 minutes into the story. And what is it that happens? What does Anderson do that changes everything?
Well, you mean you actually see the film crew? I mean, you just, the camera just breaks the fourth wall, right? I mean,
he breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And increasingly, as the story progresses, he breaks the fourth wall more and more.
And he also does other things, because he actually even breaks down the 3-act structure instead of having, because it says end of part 1 at the half-hour mark, end of part 2, 17 minutes into part 2, and then you've got part 3. So it's already got a sort of erratic 3-part structure that doesn't cohere to the usual 3-part structure that we're used to.
I guess that's true too. Yeah. But the thing that I think was noteworthy was the breaking down of the fourth wall. Was the idea that suddenly there would be a scene. The actors are still talking, but they're in the control room and they're looking at the guys doing the switching. You can see Stephen Frears standing at the back, and all of a sudden it's gone to pieces, the idea of quality TV drama. And he's not only subverting the narrative, but he's subverting the storytelling as well.
I think he's also inferring that there's no divide between art, like being something over there, and the audience, or the people even making it. He's saying we're all part of the same thing. We are the artists and the audience, and we're part of it.
Yeah, and it was so amazing because I was agog. I saw this thing and I thought, wow, British television has come of age. Finally we're seeing good stuff on television. I haven't seen anything good on British television since The Prisoner. And finally something's happened.
And the old crowd came out because it was what struck me as a little odd is looking at it, the quality seemed like it was from almost like the late 60s, but it was actually released in 1979, right?
It was still the same old video. It was the same cameras, the same, and the same 4:3 ratio and the same television sets as we've been using in the 50s. Only they were in color now.
Yeah.
But what was interesting for me, I was so blown away, and my friend Martin, who was the art director, was so proud of it and so pleased. The reaction of the English critics.
Savaged it, I bet.
Oh, man.
Just savaged it, I'm sure.
They were so upset. They were infuriated because Anderson was was this up-and-coming guy. I mean, he was a member of the patrician class, and up until that moment, with the documentaries that you were going to mention, and with This Sporting Life, and with If, and Oh Lucky Man, he'd gone on from one height of critical esteem to another, and all of a sudden they tore him down.
Yeah.
I mean, he got such a savaging by the English critical fraternity, saying, "Oh, we've seen this all before. We know all about this." When had they ever seen it before? What did they know about it? When had they ever thought about anything? Never. But the problem was for Anderson, it did kind of break him, because through Martin, I got to meet Anderson after that, and I was involved in writing a feature adaptation of The Old Crowd.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did a couple of treatments. Didn't do a whole screenplay, but I did a couple of treatments of how it might go.
Wow.
And but in the end, he was really put on the back foot. He found it hard to raise money. He couldn't raise the money for the feature of The Old Crowd. He found it hard to raise money for Britannia Hospital. And if you see it, well, there's a reason you haven't seen it. It's not as good of a film as his previous features. And then he really...
Britannia Hospital?
Yeah, Britannia Hospital. He's fumbling a bit and trying to find jokes, whereas before the humor came naturally out of the bizarre situations. Yeah. And after that, he really gave up, and he just descended into routine filmmaking, like The Whales of August, And so it was interesting to see a filmmaker really get busted by the critical establishment and lose his confidence.
Yeah. It's tragic, too. I mean, I've always wanted to program for the International Film Series, like maybe over a weekend with a Friday, Saturday screening of, that would be like If, Oh Lucky Man, and Britannia Hospital, because I understand they work as a trilogy.
Yeah, you could say that. Certainly If and Oh Lucky Man could be a duology or a duopoly.
Right. But unfortunately, I live here in Colorado. We're here in Boulder. And If, Malcolm McDowell was kind of made a poster boy after If came out in, was it 1968? And he kind of became a poster boy for disaffected youth. But, and the movie is important. It exposes the hypocrisy of how schools work, churches, militaries. But at the same time, the
horrors of the English single-sex private school system.
Right. But at the same time, it also has a bunch of school kids picking up guns and then shooting, people. And guess what?
They shoot their teachers and the great and the good, the bishop and the local mayor and stuff on Prize Day at school.
Right. Well, that's always it. Every time I think about screening it, there's always some more, some new, horrific shooting here in Colorado. And of course, we just had one just 10 minute bike ride from where I'm talking to you now. How do you
program that film, even though it's a very moral film and the ending of the film is entirely justified by the narrative and the situation?
Let me tell you, we've been pent up in our homes. And I've been planning a glorious return to the movie theater or just to, big screen cinema. And I've been thinking about titles that show people watching movies. So in other words, movies where within the movie, people are watching movies, because it just seems like it would add a little bit of fun. But like 3 of the titles that I had in mind, which have people within the movie watching movies, include Bonnie and Clyde, Bogdanovich's Targets, and Biggest Lunas's Anguish. And all 3, of course, also have some gun carnage, which I just don't feel I can program it anymore. And I got to tell you, we even have we have an Oscar Shorts program that we're releasing this Friday, and one of the animated shorts, which is very tactfully done, and it's an animated thing that normally you could say it's an all ages thing, but because it even addresses parental grief over losing a child to gun violence, it feels all too raw. We have to slap some warnings on that. We got a lot of traumatized people, and of course they're traumatized. It is a traumatic time.
When I was teaching at CU Boulder, I had graduate students in my class who had been traumatized by the Columbine shootings.
Right.
And while we were there, the Aurora massacre happened in the cinema.
Yep.
And I don't know how many people were killed. And the latest of these massacres, or maybe there have been intervening massacres too in Colorado, but the latest one that I'm aware of took place at the King Supers, where my wife and I used to go shopping every day.
Right.
We lived 2 blocks away from that.
Yep,
and you and I, we would go drinking half a block away at the Southern Sun.
That's right. Yeah.
So even though I don't know any of those people personally, but quite possibly I made frequent eye contact across the checking counter with one of the victims of that massacre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my mom was there just an hour before it happened, getting groceries there. So, I mean, it's just it's crazy to think about these things, and it is traumatic. But it's, at some point, I mean, I think it's going to be. We might want to table this maybe for next week, because I think you told me that our colleague, our friend Jeff Marslet, who you just made a movie with, and he's got another movie that addresses this issue, I think. And so
yeah. I mean, I think also, I mean, gun violence is so big and such a huge subject. I mean, I think we have to contextualize this horrific massacre in Boulder, because the accused assassin, the accused lunatic, was born in Syria in 1999, immigrated presumably legally, so his parents presumably were what we view as the good Syrians. But we've made our mark on that country big time. And I think, 22 days before he went and bought that gun, Biden bombed Syria and killed 22 people. And so,
yeah, I mean, our military.
There's a context to this horror.
The military-industrial complex that is fed very well by our tax money that's part of the problem. The fact that we have 800 foreign military bases around the world is a part of the problem. The part of the
but as you were saying as well, that like our entertainments, the entertainments that we create, also right, kind of make easy use of guns and violence in order to push the narrative along. This whole,
we have a lot of gun fetishists in this country. And yeah, I mean, whether you're looking at, from Dirty Harry on up to Scarface on up to, but also in other countries like Hard Boiled or going earlier to Sam Peckinpah, The Wild Bunch, there is sort of this extensive use of violence and gun fetishism. And to what extent, just to screen something, are you becoming part of the problem? And at the same time, if we omit our ability to see anything from the past that touches on every nerve, then what are you left with in order to, in terms of, and it seems like it's sort of whitewashing history as well. I mean, there's a lot of different angles to this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we should. I mean, I actually called Jeff Marslet yesterday and asked him if he was interested in talking about this same subject, because he made a film called Loves Her Gun. A sort of a more thoughtful death wish, about a liberal woman who decides she needs a pistol.
Was that the tear sheet quote from a critic? A more thoughtful love wish death wish.
I should be handing these out. I should just write these things down and send them to filmmakers, because
you should.
Yeah. But I do think seriously that Jeff would be a good person to talk to, because he's from Texas. He knows the score, and we could have an interesting conversation with him and get a bit deeper into this. I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, he also, his friend was the director behind the animated film Tower, which was a thoughtful look back on that horrible situation. So yeah, I think he'll be a good guest. It's a topic it'll be ongoing, and there's a lot of angles.
But we can get a lot more. We can get a bit in the time that's allotted to us. We can get a bit more deeply into it, and also talk about drama and how drama and the work that we do, what impact that has. I think it's a good idea.
Awesome. Well, do you want to, why don't we sort of bookmark it right there, and then we're going to return to some of these themes, I think, next week.
And if anybody wants to watch The Old Crowd, good luck. But you can find it because there is a boxed set of Alan Bennett TV dramas, mostly directed by Stephen Frears, which you can find courtesy of Network, which is the distributor which also distributes the Prisoner DVDs and Blu-rays.
Oh, okay.
So you can find, and Alan Bennett's a good writer. He's an intelligent man and a thoughtful individual. And so if you're really interested in seeing The Old Crowd, and I highly recommend it because I think it's Lindsay Anderson's best work, probably, you can find it in the Alan Bennett 6-pack.
There you go. Okay, some good information for Lindsay Anderson fans and people who also want to just see something that was pretty. It reminded me of radical theater because it had that sort of structure, and it really stuck with me. I got to say, it's like I'm still thinking about it right now.
And also, it's interesting because Anderson, up until that point, had been very Brechtian. If you think about the way of. If and Oh Lucky Man, with the breaks and the titles and the demonstrative nature of the drama. And I think that what was really beautiful for me was to see how Martin Turner interacted with Anderson and brought surrealism into the equation.
Definitely.
That was a beautiful interaction, and I've never seen another drama which was so simultaneously Brechtian and Buñuelian. Yeah,
no, agreed. I think it was really strong, and thanks for turning me on to it. And we'll.
Cool. I thought you'd like it. Make Jason watch it too.
Well, it's an hour long, so it's actually an easy request. So I'll make sure that he gets a chance.
And especially if you've been schooled on quality English drama and all the aristocrats with their bow ties and their fishing and hunting and shooting and stuff. It's quite a revelation to see it all broken apart by Anderson in this 1 hour drama.
Well, that must have, and remind me, when were you there to see the premiere of this? Like
what was the release date again? What was the release date of the film?
For the old 1979.
79. So I saw it. Yeah. So I'd gone to UCLA in 77.
Yeah.
And I'd just come back from my holidays, and Martin said, "Come and see what I just did."
Wow. And was Lindsay Anderson there? Is that where you met him?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I got to meet Lindsay Anderson. I got to meet Peter Bennett, the old actor I say the old actor, and Peter Bennett, the guy who plays the kind of the out of it millionaire, who's like a really old doddery guy wandering around listening to his radio. He says to me, "Well, how wonderful it is that our generation departing the scene are able to meet and enjoy ourselves with your generation," meaning me and Martin, as we come on in. And then I looked up Peter Bennett the other day, thinking, how old was that old duffer? Man, he was 60 years old when he said that to me. But he played an old guy on film.
Yeah. Well, he did it. He's got the chops, so why not?
There's some beautiful acting in it. Beautiful acting. All the acting in the film is very, very good. There's Lindsay Anderson regulars, and there's also a wonderful character, Valentine Dial, the actor who carries the sword cane.
Yes. Oh, I wanted to, I'm glad you brought him Oscar, because that character of Oscar, there's this, I felt like, it's all being shot live while it's happening. And there was this one moment where Oscar, he just tosses his cane into the air, and one of the...
and Frank Grimes, a young actor from the theater, playing a despicable, horrible actor, playing a waiter, just catches the thing. It
catches the cane in midair, and he's one of the he's introduced at the very beginning as a slave, because he's an out of work actor who's now playing the part of a servant to these upper Mucky Months. Yeah. No. It was such a fascinating, I'm so glad I saw it. So thanks again for turning me on to it. And, Alex, I look forward to talking with you next week. We'll bring Jeff on.
Listen, we'll pick up on these very important issues. We'll talk more about these with Jeff Marsland next week.
That sounds perfect.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
Thanks again for joining Alex Cox and myself today. I'd like to thank Jason Phelps for handling the audio and Ted Thacker for letting us use the intro to his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna, for the musical cues that bookend these conversations.